It was a cold winter morning when I first noticed the old man sitting in the corner of the airport terminal. He was hunched over, his cane resting beside him. His face was lined with age, his skin a deep shade of brown that seemed to hold stories of a lifetime. His eyes, though tired, had a sharpness to them, like he had seen too much in his years to be fooled by anything or anyone. He wore a faded military jacket that looked like it had seen better days, a reminder of times long past. I didn't think much of him at first. Airports are filled with all kinds of people. Some are rushing to catch flights, others are sitting and waiting, like the old man, for their departure. But something about his presence lingered in the back of my mind, even though I was too focused on my own things to give it much thought. It wasn't until I overheard a conversation between a couple of airport staff members that things started to take a turn. I was sitting by the gate, waiting for my flight, when I heard the voices of two employees talking behind the counter. They were talking about the old man. "I don't know what he's doing here," one of the staff members said, her voice dripping with disdain. "He's probably one of those old veterans who think they deserve special treatment." I could hear the snickers in her voice as she continued. "Look at him. Probably doesn't even have a ticket. Probably just here to waste time and cause trouble." The other staff member chuckled. "Yeah, he looks like he's just here to beg for free stuff. Classic." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I turned around slightly, trying to see the old man, but he was still sitting there, completely unaware of the cruel conversation happening just behind him. It made me sick to my stomach. I wanted to say something, but I didn't. I was just a bystander, like everyone else. Maybe I was too shy, or maybe I didn't think it was my place to get involved. But I regret that decision now more than ever. The staff members continued to gossip and make fun of the old man. I could hear them making jokes about his appearance, his clothes, and his cane. It was all so heartless, and I couldn't stand it. But I didn't speak up, and I didn't do anything to stop them. The situation took a turn for the worse when one of the airport staff members approached the old man directly. The woman walked up to him with an exaggerated smile, clearly feigning politeness. She had probably been assigned to check his ticket, but the way she was carrying herself, her condescending tone, the way she spoke to him like he was a child, made me cringe. "Excuse me, sir," she said, her voice sugary sweet. "Can I help you with anything? Do you have a ticket?" The old man looked up slowly, clearly taken aback by the question. His eyes seemed to flicker with confusion, as if he hadn't expected to be spoken to in such a manner. He nodded slowly and pulled out a crumpled ticket from his jacket pocket. I could see the paper was worn, edges frayed from being handled so many times. "Yes, I have a ticket," he said quietly, his voice rough from years of use. The woman didn't even glance at the ticket, as she grabbed it from his hands with a little too much force. "This is a one-way ticket?" she asked, her voice dripping with suspicion. The old man nodded again, his grip tightening on his cane. "Yes, I'm going home, to my daughter's place." The woman looked down at the ticket, and then back at him with a raised eyebrow. Okay. You'll need to check in with security before you go through. But maybe you should sit over there, away from the gate. We don't want you causing any trouble." Her words stung. She didn't even try to hide her disdain. It was as if she had already decided that this man wasn't worthy of respect or kindness just because of his age and the way he looked. The old man didn't respond. He just nodded and stood up slowly, clutching his cane. His face was a mixture of confusion and hurt, but he didn't say a word. He simply shuffled away to the corner of the room where she had pointed, dragging his cane behind him. As I watched him, I felt an overwhelming sense of guilt. I knew this man was being humiliated in front of everyone, and yet I wasn't doing anything to help. I told myself that it wasn't my problem, that I didn't know what was going on, but deep down, I knew better. I knew that something wasn't right, and I should have said something. But the guilt didn't end there. As I continued to watch, I saw the old man make his way to the security checkpoint. He moved slowly, but he was determined. The staff members behind the counter, who had been so quick to judge him, started whispering and laughing again. Then, something happened that changed everything. As the old man passed through security, he pulled out his wallet to show his identification. The security guard glanced at it, then paused, his eyes widening. "Sir," the guard said, his voice suddenly much more respectful. "I didn't realize. I didn't know who you were." The old man's face remained calm, but there was a slight shift in his demeanor. The guard stepped back and quickly called over a supervisor. The supervisor's face went from confusion to recognition in a matter of seconds. The old man stood there, silent, while the staff members who had previously humiliated him now fumbled over their words. One of the staff members, who had been making cruel jokes about him just moments ago, approached with her head lowered. I didn't know who you were," she stammered, her face flushed with embarrassment. The old man finally spoke up, his voice steady and calm. "It's all right. I don't need your pity. But you should know, I'm not just some old man off the street. I'm a war hero. I fought for this country." The words hung in the air for a moment. The room went quiet, and the staff members who had been laughing were now looking at him with wide eyes. They didn't know how to respond. The old man's name was Sergeant Thomas Harris. He was a decorated veteran of the Vietnam War, a man whose bravery and sacrifice had earned him numerous awards and honors. But he had never spoken about it to anyone. He never wanted to draw attention to his past. It turned out that Sergeant Harris was not just any ordinary old man. He had served his country with honor and dignity, and he had earned the right to be treated with respect. But instead, he had been judged based on his appearance, his age, and the assumptions people had made about him. As the staff members scrambled to apologize, Sergeant Harris simply nodded, accepting their words without fanfare. He wasn't interested in their apologies. He didn't need them. But what he did need was for people to remember that respect shouldn't be earned because of who you are, but because of the humanity you deserve. I watched the scene in silence, feeling a deep sense of shame for not stepping in sooner. It was only then that I realized how much this moment had taught me. It wasn't just about standing up for someone when they were being humiliated. It was about recognizing that everyone has a story, and we can't judge people based on how they look or what we assume about them. As the old man made his way to his gate, no longer the target of ridicule, but now a figure of respect, I felt a surge of admiration for him. He had faced years of hardship, fought for his country, and lived through experiences that most people could never even begin to understand. And yet he carried himself with quiet dignity, never once raising his voice or demanding recognition. The old man disappeared through the gate, and I sat there for a moment, reflecting on everything that had happened. I knew I would never forget that day. The day I had witnessed a man, humiliated by the very people who should have respected him, rise above it with grace and strength. From that day forward, I promised myself I would never judge anyone based on appearances. I would try harder to recognize the stories that each person carries, and most importantly, I would always remember the lesson that Sergeant Harris taught me. Respect is something that should be given freely, not earned based on titles or past deeds. Every person deserves it, no matter who they are or what they've been through.